My name's Callum. I'm 32 now. If you told me 5 years ago that my own wedding would turn out to be the most satisfying bit of quiet revenge I'd ever get to pull off, honestly, I would have thought you were nuts. I never saw myself as the kind of person who keeps score. I was always the one smoothing things over even when it left me feeling hollow inside. But you get worn down after a while. When your own flesh and blood spends years treating you like the spare part of the family, like you're only around because they forgot to lock the door, it changes you. Not all at once. It's not dramatic. It's like a slow leak in a tire, barely noticeable at first, but eventually you realize you've been running flat for years. It's a shift inside you, quiet but final. A kind of closing off. You don't even notice it happening until one day you just stop reaching out. Growing up, I didn't really fit the mold. I wasn't causing trouble, wasn't out partying or picking fights. I just liked different things: books over football, chess over video games, space documentaries instead of reality shows. Peter and Sarah, my siblings, were the golden children. Homecoming dances, varsity teams, all the usual highlight reel stuff. Me? I just wanted a quiet dinner where I could ask if anyone else thought the Apollo missions were underrated. At first, I figured it was harmless, just some light teasing for being the odd one out. But in my family, teasing had sharp edges. It wasn't just jokes, it was being shut out over and over again, like I was the family's designated background character. My birthday party? Somehow the invites never made it out. Family trips? Apparently nobody remembered to tell me. I tried not to take it to heart. Really, I did. But things hit different when the weddings rolled around. Sarah's was the first. I was 22. She pulled me aside one day looking like she was rehearsing for a toothpaste commercial. She said, "Callum, I think it's better if you don't come to the wedding. It's just going to be really normal, not really your kind of thing." I stared at her like I'd just been slapped with a cold dishcloth. She patted my shoulder like she was being generous and promised she'd send some photos. I didn't argue, didn't cry, but for a solid week it felt like my throat was made of gravel every time I tried to eat. When I brought it up, my dad muttered something about it being Sarah's day and moved on like he was reading the weather. Mom just shrugged and said, "You'd have hated it anyway." Like I hadn't grown up with half the people who would be there. Like I didn't count. Then came Peter's wedding. And this time I didn't even get the courtesy of being told I wasn't invited. No conversation. No awkward heads up. I found out through a Facebook post, some blurry picture of the whole family dressed like a magazine spread, toasting at a long table. The caption? "Family is everything." I sat there staring at the screen, feeling like I'd just been erased. No call. No message. Nothing. Just radio silence followed by a punch to the gut, gift-wrapped in fake smiles and hashtags. You'd think I'd walk away after that, right? But hope, man, hope's persistent. It hangs on way longer than it should. So I kept showing up. Holidays, birthdays, random texts. Sometimes I'd get a polite reply. Most times, nothing. And even when they did respond, it felt like they were talking to a coworker they didn't remember hiring. "How's work?" they'd ask, like they were trying to fill space. Or, "Still keeping to yourself, huh?" like that was some personal failing. Every time I saw them, I felt like I was auditioning for a part no one wanted me to have. I'd walk in hoping things had changed. I'd leave feeling like a ghost. The breaking point wasn't loud. It wasn't even angry. It was just a regular Saturday afternoon. Peter had moved into a new place, and despite everything, I made the trip to his housewarming party. I even bought a gift card. I don't know what I thought would happen. Maybe they'd finally see I was still trying. I rang the bell a few times before Peter opened up, looking like he'd seen a deer on his porch. "Oh, hey," he said, scratching his neck. "Mom didn't think you'd actually come." I forced a smile. "Well, I'm here. Got you something?" He took the gift like it might explode. Inside, the place was buzzing, music, barbecue, people laughing. I recognized the faces. These were people who'd watched me grow up. But they looked at me like I was just another random guest. I tried mingling. Tried to make conversation. But it felt like trying to start a fire with wet matches. People gave me tight smiles, then turned back to whatever they were doing. And then came the cherry on top. Later that night, from across the yard, I heard Sarah, already half-drunk, yell out, "Well, hey, at least Callum didn't ruin anything this time. That's gotta be a record." And everyone roared with laughter. I stood there, cup in hand, and something inside me just went still. No one defended me. No one pulled her aside. It was just another punchline, another reminder that I was the family footnote. I didn't yell. Didn't cry. I slipped out the side gate, drove home in silence, and that night, I deleted the family group chat for good. No message. No goodbye. Just done. Then, about a year later, everything changed. I met Rachel. She was a completely different kind of person, thoughtful, warm, actually interested in who I was instead of who I wasn't. She liked my quirks, laughed at my bad puns, and listened to me ramble about space missions like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. For the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. I proposed. She said yes, tears in her eyes. We dove into wedding planning right away, just the two of us, excited and full of ideas. We both knew what we wanted, a small, close-knit gathering of people who chose to love us. One night, while we were finalizing the guest list, Rachel looked at me and said gently, "What about your family? Do you want to invite them?" I paused. Really thought about it. Thought about being the bigger person. Thought about how weddings are supposed to bring people together. And then I saw Sarah's face in my mind, smiling as she uninvited me from hers. The Facebook digs. The sloppy, booze-fueled insults. A lifetime of being treated like I was just extra. All of it came flooding back when Rachel asked about inviting my family. I didn't hesitate. "No," I said, calm as anything. "I don't want them there." She smiled, soft and certain, and kissed my forehead. "Good," she said. "This day should be about love. Not some twisted sense of duty." Of course, word still got around. Small towns are like that, secrets don't stay secret for long. Just a week after the invites went out, I got a message from Mom. "Heard you're getting married. When are you sending our invites?" No congrats. No warmth. Just this cold, entitled question like it was a given they'd be on the list. I stared at the text for a while, then typed back 4 simple words. "There's no invitation coming." That was the spark. And man, did the fire catch fast. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree, texts, calls, the whole group chat blown to pieces. Mom and Dad accusing me of tearing the family apart. Peter pretending like we were best friends. Sarah pulling out every manipulative guilt trip she could manage. Suddenly, they couldn't imagine not being there. Funny how invisible I was until they didn't get what they thought they were owed. Sarah even posted one of her signature vague Facebook statuses. Funny how some people forget where they come from. Enjoy your little party without your real family. I didn't take the bait. Didn't respond. Didn't read half the messages, honestly. Instead, Rachel and I funneled all that chaos into building something beautiful. Our wedding wasn't about damage control. It was about celebration. The people we invited were the ones who'd shown up, not just for the big moments, but during the quiet, hard times too. Friends who cheered the loudest when we got engaged. Coworkers who lifted me up when I hit rock bottom. Neighbors who treated me like I mattered when my own family barely noticed I was breathing. These were the ones standing with us when we said "I do." And when the big day finally came, when I turned to see Rachel walking down the aisle, her smile lighting up everything around her, something inside me finally clicked into place. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the odd one out. I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. I felt chosen. And as sweet as that moment was, it wasn't even the best part. That came later, right after the ceremony, when Mr. Carrington, my retired neighbor and unofficial life coach, waved me over with a grin. "Callum," he said, smirking like he was about to let me in on the world's juiciest secret, "you gotta see this." He led me over to a small circle of our guests, all gathered around a phone. The second they saw me, they lit up like kids on Christmas morning. Someone tilted the screen toward me and said, barely able to keep from laughing, "Look what's blowing up on Facebook right now." There it was. Post after post. Sarah, Peter, and of course, Mom, all losing their minds in public, ranting about how selfish I was, how family is everything, how I'd turned my back on the people who loved me first. Sarah's was a full-blown meltdown. "Can't believe my own brother excluded us from his wedding. After all our family has done for him. Disgusting behavior. Some people really don't get what family means." Someone had commented beneath it. "Didn't you not invite him to your wedding?" No reply. Just a handful of defensive likes and some petty backup from her usual crew. Peter's post was somehow even worse. "Guess Callum forgot who helped raise him. Maybe he'll remember when he's all alone someday." And right below that, "Didn't invite him to your wedding either." Karma's wild. Mom, not to be outdone, posted an old blurry family photo, one of the few where I was actually present. Captioned, "Some people forget who loved them first." I stared at the screen and almost laughed. Loved me? When? Between the silence and the cold shoulders? When exactly did that love show up? Everyone in the group watched my face, waiting for me to react, to break down, get mad, maybe fire off a reply. But I didn't give them that. I just smiled. Rachel slipped her hand into mine, and I looked around at our friends dancing, laughing, clinking glasses. And I truly realized, that I didn't owe those people anything. Not a seat at my table. Not a reply. Not even a second thought. I wasn't the kid begging to be included anymore. I had built something better. My table. My life. My family. And they had no place in it. The rest of the night was pure magic. We'd booked this beautiful little vineyard just outside town, simple, cozy, and lit up with fairy lights strung from the trees. The sunset that night looked like a painting, soft gold, streaks of pink and purple, the kind of sky you only get once in a lifetime. Rachel and I danced barefoot, tipsy and laughing, surrounded by the kind of joy you can't fake. Someone spilled a drink. The playlist skipped once. The cake leaned a little to the left. It was perfect. But the drama wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing nonstop, so hard it fell off the nightstand. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts. Dozens of them. For a split second, I let myself wonder maybe they were reaching out to apologize. Maybe they finally saw the truth. But the first voicemail told me everything I needed to know. Mom's voice, stiff and sharp. Callum, you need to call me back right now. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're going to regret cutting off your family. You'll see. No one else will ever love you the way we do. Next came Sarah. Congrats on your sad little party. Hope it was worth it. Traitor. Then Peter. A long, theatrical sigh followed by, you'll come crawling back. You always do. I sat there on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, while Rachel slept peacefully beside me. I listened to every last voicemail, every bitter word. And for once, it didn't hurt. It didn't even sting. It just sounded pathetic. I could have fired back. Could have written a scathing reply. Could have told them all exactly what I thought. But I didn't. I did the one thing they never could handle. I said nothing. I blocked their numbers. Deleted every message. And then I rolled over, pulled Rachel close, and let that peace settle in like a warm blanket. That was the moment I shut the door for good this time. Later that afternoon, Rachel and I were sitting out on the back porch of our little rental cabin, just the two of us, watching the sun melt behind the hills. We passed a cheap bottle of champagne back and forth like it was fine wine, not caring that it was warm or flat. She leaned her head against my shoulder and asked in a soft voice, "Any regrets?" I gave it a second, thought about the voicemails, the posts, the front porch ambush that still hadn't happened, and then squeezed her hand. Not even a little, I said. Because the truth was, they'd actually been right about one thing. Family is everything. They just never understood the part where you get to choose who your family is. And I had chosen fully, freely, and finally. At first, all I heard from them was static, a constant flood of angry voicemails, bitter posts, text messages that showed up like clockwork at 2 a.m. I ignored every single one of them. Rachel and I slipped fully into newlywed life, leaving all that noise behind like we'd closed a door to another world. We slept in, wandered through quiet little towns, and argued over who was worse at keeping track of the hotel key. Spoiler, it was me. She never finished a cup of coffee while it was still hot. I never stopped laughing at that. We were building something. Something peaceful. Something real. And it drove my family insane. They didn't know what to do with silence. Especially not mine. They'd always counted on me to come crawling back. But I was done crawling. I was standing now. About a week later, the tone shifted. Mom's texts went from angry to pleading. Family sticks together. Call me. We're still your parents. You're hurting us, Aaron. Think about everything we did for you. Still no apology. Still no ownership. Just their twisted version of reality where I was the villain for finally walking away from the mess they'd made. When that didn't crack me, they tried a different angle. I got an email from Dad. Yes, an actual email, which was hilarious considering the man once called me because he couldn't figure out how to copy and paste. The message was short, cold, and painfully clear. We're still your legal family. You don't get to erase that. No warmth, no emotion, just control dressed up as connection. Rachel and I started joking about it. Made a bingo card of all the classic guilt trips. You're being selfish. You'll regret this. We're your real family. It was like clockwork. Predictable. Sad. Until it wasn't funny anymore. Because they showed up. It was a Wednesday morning. Rachel was humming along to a corny 90s playlist while flipping pancakes in the kitchen. I was working from my laptop, answering emails, when I heard the knock. Not just a knock. A loud, frantic pounding. Rachel froze mid-flip, spatula hovering like a question mark. You expecting someone? She asked. I shook my head slowly, already feeling it in my gut. Something was wrong. I stood up, walked to the front door, and looked through the peephole. There they were. All of them. Mom, Dad, Sarah, Peter. clustered together on our tiny porch like a sad, awkward family photo nobody wanted framed. Mom had some casserole dish in her hands like she was trying to play nice, like she thought comfort food could erase years of damage. Dad looked stiff, arms crossed, jaw clenched. Sarah was hiding behind a pair of oversized sunglasses, as if shielding herself from me. Peter was scrolling through his phone like he couldn't be bothered. I didn't open the door. Instead, I cracked the window just a little, just enough to hear. "Hi, sweetheart," Mom called, voice way too chipper. "We thought we'd stop by and have a little chat. You know, as a family." That voice, that sticky sweet tone she always used when she was furious but didn't want anyone to see it. "We're busy," I said, calm, clear, not playing along. There was a long pause. Then Dad stepped forward. His voice snapped like a whip. "Aaron, enough of this. Come out here and face your family like a man." Behind me, I felt Rachel's hand slide into mine. "They're not just going to leave, are they?" she whispered. "No," I said. "They're not." Outside, Mom's face started to crack. The smile dropped just a bit. She placed the casserole on the porch rail with a loud clunk and crossed her arms. "This isn't you," she said, voice trembling just enough to sell it. "You're not cold like this. You're not cruel." As if everything they'd done to me didn't exist. As if this whole thing had just come out of nowhere. Sarah spoke next, pulling her glasses down to glare right at Rachel. "You're letting her poison you against us." That was it. That was the line. I opened the window a little wider and looked her straight in the eye. "Nobody poisoned me," I said. "You did that yourselves." The look on her face was pure shock. For once, she didn't have a comeback. Peter finally looked up from his phone, eyebrows raised like I was being dramatic. "Seriously, Aaron?" he said. "You're gonna throw away your whole family over some hurt feelings?" "Boo-hoo." Rachel's grip tightened, not in fear, in fury. I breathed deep, steadying my voice. "You didn't want me at your weddings. You didn't want me around on holidays. You left me out over and over again. So now you don't get to be here when things are good. You made your choice. Now I've made mine." Mom's mask dropped completely then. No more fake hurt. No more honeyed words. Just pure, snarling rage. "You'll regret this," she spat. "When you've pushed everyone away and you're all alone, you'll see. No one else will ever love you like we do." I smiled. "For real. I've already got everything I need," I said. And with that, I closed the window. Not slammed. Not shouted. Just quietly, firmly shut them out. They stood there in stunned silence for a moment. Then the banging started. Fists on the door. Raised voices. Shouts getting louder and uglier by the second. Rachel pulled me back toward the kitchen, her face pale but steady. "Do we call the cops?" she asked. I was just about to say something when it happened. A loud crack rang out. Sharp and sudden, like wood splintering. Then came another. They weren't just yelling anymore. They were trying to force their way in. Oddly enough, I didn't panic. Not because I wasn't scared. My heart was pounding like a drum solo, echoing in my ears, but something had changed in me. That old part of me, the one that froze up and tried to make peace at any cost. The part that hoped they'd suddenly wake up and be different. It was gone. Burned away. Rachel's hand was gripping mine so tightly her knuckles had gone white. And in that moment, I understood something. This wasn't about fear. It was about protecting the life I'd built, the peace we'd fought so hard to find. They weren't going to ruin it. Not again. "Call the police," I said, steady and calm. She didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone and ducked behind the kitchen counter while I stayed rooted right where I was, planted firmly between her and the front door. The pounding kept getting louder, more erratic. From outside, Dad's voice cracked through the chaos. "We're not leaving without you, Callum," he shouted. "Get out here and talk to your family." The door rattled in its frame as fists slammed against it. Mom was shrieking something about how I was a traitor, Sarah was cursing under her breath like she thought I couldn't hear, and Peter, predictably, was the loudest. "You're gonna regret this," he bellowed. "No one else is gonna put up with you once she figures out what a worthless loser you are." I didn't flinch. Didn't shout back. I just stood there, breathing slow, keeping my body between them and the woman I loved. Then I heard it, the high-pitched wail of sirens in the distance. And just like that, everything stopped. I moved to the window and peeked out just in time to see Mom hurriedly grabbing the casserole dish like it was some kind of shield that could make this all look normal. Dad barked at Peter and Sarah to straighten up. They all tried to play it off like they hadn't just been screaming and banging on my door 2 minutes earlier. A police cruiser pulled up fast, tires crunching on the gravel. 2 officers stepped out, one man, one woman, both looking like they were already exhausted and fully over it. You could tell they'd seen this kind of family mess before. I opened the door slowly, keeping my hands where they could see them. "Morning, officers," I said. "Thanks for coming." The female officer nodded. "We got a call about a disturbance. Can you explain what's going on?" Before I could speak, Mom came charging forward, casserole dish still in hand like it meant something. Her voice trembled, trying to sound soft, but I could hear the edge underneath. "This is our son," she gushed. "We just wanted to talk to him." "But sheesh." She jabbed a finger toward the window where Rachel peeked out from behind the curtain. "She's turned him against us. Now he thinks he can just cut off his family." The officer didn't blink. "So you tried to force entry into the house?" Mom gasped like she'd just been slapped. "No. We needed to talk. He wouldn't come out and Dad stepped up beside her, using his height like a weapon the way he always had. "We have a right to see our son." The male officer pulled out a small notepad and let out a slow breath. "Sir, that's not how it works. He's an adult. You don't have any legal right to be here uninvited. If this continues, the threats, the showing up unannounced, he can press charges." Mom went pale. Sarah muttered something too low to hear. Peter rolled his eyes like he was the one being wronged. I looked at all of them, every face I used to try so hard to please, and said, clearly and without hesitation, "I want to press charges. Trespassing. Attempted forced entry. And I want to file for a restraining order." For the first time that morning, they all froze. Mom's jaw dropped. Dad's face turned dark red. Sarah's sunglasses slipped down her nose, and Peter actually took a full step back. You don't mean that," Mom whispered, like she still couldn't believe I had the nerve. "We're family." And that word, family, snapped something clean and final in me. Not out of rage. Not from pain. Just clarity. "No," I said, looking her dead in the eyes. "We're not. Not anymore." After that, the officers separated us. Took statements. Asked all the usual questions. Rachel finally came out, her hand in mine, rock steady. My family didn't stop, not right away. They begged, threatened, pleaded, wheeled through the whole manipulation cycle like they were spinning a prize wheel at a carnival. Mom cried about losing her baby. Dad called me ungrateful. Sarah accused me of being broken. Peter scoffed and sulked like the whole thing was beneath him. But the officers didn't flinch. They issued a formal warning, clear and direct. "Come back here again and you'll be arrested." That afternoon, I filed for the restraining order. It took a few forms and some time, but it felt like drawing a line in wet cement and watching it harden. That door? It was shut. Locked. And this time permanently. The days that followed were quiet. Almost too quiet. No more middle-of-the-night texts. No sudden messages. No passive-aggressive Facebook status updates. It was like the moment they realized they couldn't control me anymore, they vanished. I won't pretend it didn't sting now and then. There were moments, especially around the holidays, when I caught myself wondering what it would have been like if things had been different. If they'd been better people. If they'd tried. Seeing other families laughing around the dinner table, swapping stories, hugging like it was nothing, it hit me sometimes. Not in big, dramatic ways, just quiet little aches. But over time, that space inside me stopped feeling hollow. It filled. Slowly but fully. With the right people. Real friends. Chosen family. The kind who show up not because they're supposed to, but because they want to. They didn't love me out of obligation. They loved me because they chose to. People who saw me really saw me and stayed. Not out of guilt. Not because they shared my last name. But because they cared about who I was, not who they wanted me to be. Rachel's parents welcomed me like I'd always belonged. No questions, no hesitations. Just open arms and a second plate at dinner like I'd been part of the family from day one. My coworkers, the ones who had stood by me during the rough patches, threw us a surprise welcome-back party after the honeymoon. There was a cake, lopsided and way too sweet, with a message written in frosting that nearly made me cry. "Welcome to your real family." And the neighbors? They showed up with casseroles and handwritten cards after word got out about the restraining order. Not because they pitied me, no one gave me that look. They respected the boundary I'd drawn. They understood. Little by little, the life I dreamed about started falling into place. Not the one I was told to want. Not the one I'd been left out of. My life. About 6 months after the wedding, Rachel and I decided to throw a backyard barbecue. Nothing big, just the people who mattered. Some burgers, cold drinks, kids running wild in the grass, and laughter floating through the air like music. At one point, I stepped back from the group, beer in hand, and just took it all in. I watched my wife doubled over laughing with her best friend as they tried to salvage a tray of blackened burgers. I saw the neighbor kids racing across the yard with water guns, squealing with joy. I saw friends, chosen family talking, smiling, genuinely glad to be there. And right then it hit me. My old family, they didn't just miss a wedding. They missed this. They missed the moments that came after. The milestones, the simple joys, the ordinary kind of beautiful that builds over time. They miss watching me finally become someone I wasn't ashamed of. And all because they couldn't accept that loving someone means letting them be someone. And for the first time, truly the first time, I didn't feel the usual ache. No sadness. No wishing things had gone differently. I felt free. Completely, peacefully, finally free. And I knew right then that I was never giving that up again. Not for guilt. Not for nostalgia. And definitely not for people who only ever wanted to keep me under their thumb. As the sky turned gold and fireflies began blinking through the trees, Rachel slipped beside me and slid her hand into mine. She rested her head on my shoulder and said softly, "We made a good life." I kissed the top of her head and smiled, my voice quiet but certain. "Yeah," I whispered. "We really did." And this time I knew without a single doubt. Nobody could take that away from me. Not ever again.